Right, hello there. Just another quick video talking about your Cambridge National. We're looking again at R185, Performance and Leadership in Sports Activities. And this time we are going to look at section 1.4, Managing and Maintaining Performance in Individual Activity. Now, that's really important because this idea of managing our performance is that we know that certain things happen during a game or during a race or whatever it might be, and it's how we actually keep our performance as high as possible that we want to look at. And this idea of maintaining that for as long periods as we can, and we'll touch on that in a second. But start off with a few keywords and terms. Okay, so we're going to look at arousal, anxiety, heart rate, muscle tension, and then focus. So we'll try and develop these ideas as we go along, and during your lesson you'll find out what your sort of lesson objectives are and how that actually fits into some of the bigger picture stuff about your assignments and whatever else it might be. So, managing performance and maintaining performance. So as I mentioned earlier, if you think about a game in a graph, what happens is we all start at different points. So just on here, we've got performance. Okay, and apologies, it might not fit in. But then we've got time that goes on here, and we go up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. And then we might peak up here and then have a crash and so on. And a consistent performer will very often just go here. Okay, have a straight line there, or a poor performer might have just a straight line just there, and then have the, like I say, those up and downs, and there's no necessarily real pattern to it. There's all sorts of things that will go on. Okay, and we need to really try and understand why that happens, and then how we can do something about it in the future for our own performances. So if we just get rid of this very quickly, we're going to look at a few ideas. So as mentioned, this becomes a really important idea, this managing and maintaining. So think about those words. Think about how it might affect your performance, and then think about what you do to actually do that in your own context and setting. So, first of all, we're going to start with this one word, arousal. So, arousal is a physical and mental state of alertness and excitement. So, I'll say that again. Arousal is a physical and mental state of alertness or excitement. So what you're going to need to do when you're describing this is you're going to need to know what it is. So basically describing it to gain a pass. And then to get a merit, you need to then put it into an example of a physical example about what you're doing in terms of your performance. So if we look at this from a very simple idea, we sometimes will have a state of arousal when we're playing at the beginning of a match, when we're really pumped and really psyched up, and our arousal level will be really high. So that at that point, we're expecting our performance to be at its maximum. That's why we do a warm-up. That's why we get our bodies ready as much as we can so that we can get that arousal level up. Now, what we actually know is that those levels of arousal change. So if I change the colour there and we go to, they go to plus and minus, they'll go, like I said, that mini graph here going up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down as we go through our performance. Okay, so if we think about it, a classic example is if you think about a personal performance and using football again, in the first 5 minutes you're so excited about a game, especially when it becomes an occasion like a cup final or the World Cup or something like that we see so many people shooting the ball straight over the bar because they're too pumped up. You hear them talking about the adrenaline going through their body, and that is a state of arousal there. Now, we can also link arousal to our heart rate. Okay, so heart rate there. Again, apologies for the tappy noises, not a lot I can do. But heart rate, or HR. And as our arousal goes up, so does our heart rate. So we know that we work in BPM, beats per minute. Okay, and we can talk about how that affects our performance. Sometimes it'll have a positive effect, sometimes it'll have a negative effect. And I'm going to bring you back here to this idea of managing and maintaining it. Okay, so if we manage our arousal and then maintain it at a certain level, then we're going to find that our performance and our overall approach to how we actually do stuff will get either better, worse, whatever. We just need to be aware of how it works. So little things that come in to play is that when we have a high level of arousal and that heart rate has been pushed up in a physical sense, in the physical aspect of it, we also will have a few other signs. We can see whether that arousal level may potentially have gone up or down or whatever. Okay, so it's actually going to be us sweating. Okay, and potentially we could have other character traits. Okay, red-faced. Okay, or we could have maybe being heavy breathing. Okay, all those things are a indicator, okay, of us actually having a high level of arousal, a higher heart rate than normal that we might want to therefore have. Now, if we take another look at this and go into the mental state, okay, so the heart rate there is looking at the physical, what happens to our body. Whereas the mental state looks very much different, okay? And we bring up this other idea and keyword that we want to start developing. So I'm just going to cross a bit of this out here, create a bit of space, okay? So apologies for that. But we want to have that there, mental, and we're going to have anxiety. Now, we've probably all heard of anxiety and what it might be, but anxiety is basically a negative emotion that causes us to worry, or feel bad, or maybe also have some other sort of traits, some other things that are going on in our head that we think might be negative and therefore not do the best that we can. So like nervousness or apprehension or whatever it might be. And that can be really damaging to our performance. Remember, we're coming back here, bringing it back to our prior learning about and talk about managing and maintaining performance. That's really, really important. Now, one of the key things that we keep on coming back to is actually about skill and technique. And in the next video, you're going to hear about actually little ways that you can actually manage your performance and what you can actually do to actually get yourself a little bit better. And we'll talk about some of those things in a moment. But we're going to have a little look at some of the traits. And one of the most basic things is that we go back to the basics. You think about the skills and technique that you have. Okay, and apologies, I know my writing's not the best, it's pretty tricky on this. Okay, skills and techniques. Okay, we go back to that because if we go back to the basics, when we feel anxious and we feel nervous or we realise that our heart rate is up and we go back to the basics, that is a really simple way for us to actually manage and maintain that performance. Really, really simple. Okay, so a couple of other little things that we need to touch on. Okay, when we're feeling physically aroused, okay, we're going to have this idea about muscle tension. Okay, that's really important. That's a key word. Okay, our muscle tension and coordination, okay, they start to decrease. Okay, apologies again, squeezing it in. Okay, so that's our physical trait. That's what happens to our body. On the mental side of it, we then also have this idea that our focus goes. Okay, we don't focus and our concentration level then drops, and this really simple idea that actually when we're not focused we don't do as well. It's really, really simple. Okay, but those are the sort of ideas that we need to sort of start being aware of so that you can then get this idea of maintaining and managing that performance level. Okay, so really simple. All of these, okay, both of these will result in a decrease, lowering, that's a minus, lowering of performance. And I want you to think about your own personal experiences in this time. Okay, when we're not feeling, our arousal levels are low and muscle tension and tiredness and all those sorts of things that contribute to our arousal levels and our heart rate dropping, we can then also think about that, how that affects that performance. So think about that. Remember, you're going to have to describe this and then give some examples to get a merit, and then maybe make even some comparisons between some of those ideas as well. So to help you with that sort of distinction level answer, we're going to need to look at this idea of optimal level of arousal. And this is quite complex, okay? But what this is saying is that basically the highest level of performance is going to happen when we are most aroused. And we've touched on this already. Okay, so again, we're going over stuff that we've already talked about. Okay, so highest performance at highest level of arousal. And this diagram in the sense here, okay, this was captured, you know, in the 1970s, and this inverted U theory talks about when our arousal level is low here. I'm going to change the colour there so we can see it. Is low here, okay. Our performance is down, low, really low, under arousal. But then when we get to our optimal level, okay, this peak here, okay, our performance and our arousal levels are high. There's only one thing that happens, okay? We go back down low, okay? And this area here is where we want to go, the optimal level of arousal, okay? So that's the target zone that we want to try and stay. And the best performers will stay in this zone, in here, in between here, for as long as possible. Now, there's several other theories, but if we can start talking about that and introducing that to some of our actual assignments, then you're going to get a higher grade, okay? But there are some sports that we need to have a low level, okay, of arousal, okay? So if we think about sports where we need to remain calm, that's why we need to be able to control those emotions, and going back, think about those managing and maintaining arousal levels. So let's think about some of those. Golf, snooker, ooh, there we go, let's go back one. Snooker and darts, okay, so some really intricate skills that are involved in there, and even to some extent team sports like bowling in cricket, or taking a penalty in football, or free throw, okay, squeezing it in there again, okay, but listen to the word there. Now, what that talks about is that our heart rate drops down, we're controlling, we're managing it, we're managing our ideas. But one thing that actually happens and comes into play in both of them is that you hear people talking about being in the zone. Okay, so let's highlight that, being in the zone. That's really important, okay, idea, in the zone. Oh dear, I've actually now scribbled out what I've actually wanted you to look at, but we can change that. There you go. Okay, let's go back into it. In the zone, nice and simple. It's even better because we'll change colour. In the zone. Okay, and that is a state of flow. Okay, sometimes known as flow, and this is all good stuff to help you get some more marks. Okay, so we must be able to perform under pressure. So that we can actually get these ideas of maintaining and managing our performance again. Okay, that's really important. So remember, performing under pressure is a good thing. That's what differentiates a poor performance from a good performance, and you're going to need to evidence that as much as you possibly can. So if we go back to our keywords, we've got a few here. Okay, we've summarised it. We talked a bit about the focus and the necessity to do some of that there. Okay, but we can continue that and have a little bit more of a look in future areas about what we're doing about there with mental rehearsal in our next video. Go back, stop it, rewind, ask your teacher, ask questions, write down questions, anything you don't understand. You want to get this locked into your long-term memory stores so that you can therefore regurgitate it whenever you need to. Okay, thanks for listening. Hope you're well.